Greetings, YouTube. This is Remarkable Republican, here to bring you the truth with a truth-flavored bias. What I'd like to talk about today is how many things in our culture have been designed to serve as propaganda in order to New Yorkify American culture and eliminate the Southern heritage. I, for one, celebrate the Southern heritage and I'd like to defend it. So what can we do about this, and also why are New Yorkers going after our culture in this way? Today I seek to answer all those questions and to tell you what we can do to fight back. Hollywood has long served to celebrate the North and crush the South. They glorify units from the Union Army while not speaking about the Confederates at all. When was the last time you saw a movie about the Stonewall Brigade? Why is it that the 54th Massachusetts is a movie and the Stonewall Brigade doesn't? Well, I think it's quite obvious. Hollywood is liberal, and the North is liberal. It always has been, by the way. The South is conservative and always has been. It's very much a Democrat versus Republican thing. The North votes Democrat, the South votes Republican. Hollywood votes with the North, therefore all of their videos and productions are designed to glorify their own perspective while trying to trash that of the people they disagree with. Because the media is entirely liberal and Democrat, they not only want to promote their ideology, but they want to even destroy the region that opposes it. If they destroy Southern pride and Southern heritage, then the entire country will become liberal. So this is what they want to accomplish. And now let's talk about who they are. Simply put, they are the bad guys, the ones who stand for all that is wrong with the world and against all that is good. You have Hollywood elites, the kinds of people like Dolly Parton and Matthew McConaughey, who want to tell you what is cool and what you're allowed to think. The liberal elites, people like Oprah and The Rock, they think that they know how a government's supposed to be run. You have people like the newspaper editor elites, the Sally Busbys and other New York Times editors who want to really control what gets published and what gets printed and what doesn't. So they tell you not only what you can say, but how you can say it. You have the anchorman elites, your Rachel Maddows, people who get to talk for hours and hours and hours on end with their opinions while drowning out everyone else's. You have the Democratic Party elites. We know all the culprits: Pelosi, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden. They want the government to decide everything so that you, the average American, decide nothing. And of course we have the SJW elites, the people like Liz Cheney and others, who want you to practice politics in a very prescribed manner. You can only talk about things in one way. You can only behave in one way. These are people who lead with their feelings, and their feelings matter whereas yours don't. So these are the bad guys, and their goal when put together, not that there's that much distance between any of them, but their goal is to make us bow down to the commie and queer agenda, to create a homogenous America, which is all New York. Anti-Southern propaganda is abundant in all forms of media, but it is nowhere nearly as galling as it is in video games. The popular free game War Thunder is a good example. This game is put out for free so that the maximum number of people will be exposed to it, and the way in which the anti-Southern propaganda in this game works is that tanks named for Northern generals tend to be good, tanks named for Southern generals tend to be trash. For instance, the Sherman tank from World War II is named after General Sherman from the Civil War. It's pretty good. It has many variants, and most of them do well if you use them in the game. Likewise with the Pershing tank. It is also beastly, and Pershing is a Midwestern general. Now, some people might consider him Southern because he's from Missouri, but Missouri is actually Midwestern, not Southern. Finally, there is the M3 and M5 Stuart tank, named after a Confederate general, Jeb Stuart. However, while Jeb Stuart was a great general, the tank performs like garbage in War Thunder. This is not only historically inaccurate, but it also, of course, is supposed to associate Jeb Stuart with being trash. In order to rehabilitate Jeb Stuart's reputation, I have put him here on screen so that you know the man's face. Tell him to his face that the tank that was named after him is a piece of crap. It wasn't. It was a light tank, and it did very well for the role that it had. Anyone who really understands warfare would know that. One of the worst offenders in terms of promoting anti-Southern propaganda is the game Civil War Generals 2. This, of course, is a game about the war between the states, and it supposedly is made by people who value their history and know it. And yet, Confederate generals always have worse ratings than Union generals. In reality, the only reason the war lasted as long as it did is because the Southern generals were routinely superior. So it's inaccurate in the way that it rates to generals, and a lot of that is to promote the political idea that liberals are smarter than conservatives and better. Otherwise, there'd be no reason to have the ratings be what they are. Another thing that's inaccurate about the game is that Confederate artillery is a lot weaker than Union artillery. Most of these cannons are pretty much the same, and the Union may have had more cannons, but they weren't that much better. So I don't know why the Union cannons are always dominant and inflict massive losses, and the Confederates have just little pea shooters and pop guns. It's just a little bit too much, and it makes the Confederate artillery out to be really weak, whereas in reality it sometimes did good work. And probably the most egregious example of all, as if rating the Confederate generals badly wasn't enough, they take Benjamin F. Cheatham's name and abbreviate it as B.F. Cheatham. This, of course, is grotesque and inappropriate. B.F. only ever stands for buttfucker. And there is no evidence whatsoever that General Cheatham was in fact a buttfucker. General Cheatham was in fact a man of honor. He was very popular in his community. He was also someone with an excellent military record. And yet, he is now being disparaged as a buttfucker. And this is not the kind of liberal elite who would want to celebrate his homosexuality, but rather the liberal elite who want to chastise him for looseness. So even if this were from the more well-meaning, albeit still misguided, faction of liberals, it would have been bad, but because it comes from this very negative and very judgmental part of the liberal movement, it's that much worse. And so Benjamin F. Cheatham deserves to be recognized for both the good general and the heterosexual father of many children that he was in reality. Another very popular game that is guilty of bashing the South is The Last of Us. This is a PlayStation exclusive game, and the protagonist and main character of The Last of Us is Joel Miller, who is from Texas. I personally think Joel is a great character, and I enjoy his fighting style. The writers have come out on the record to say that Joel's morality is supposed to be questionable, that he's really not a good man, despite how he obviously is. They decided to change their minds after they made the game. They were too incompetent to portray Joel as being morally checkered, and instead portrayed him as a hero, and now to disguise their own ineptitude, they're trying to retroactively change the story and make it seem like he is somehow compromised morally. But if you play the game, it's obvious that Joel doesn't do anything wrong, and that what he does is simply what a good person would do, provided that they were strong enough to do it the way that he did. And again, a lot of this is because Joel Miller can't be a straight hero. So as soon as the game was completed, the writers were then pressured by Hollywood powers to really try to throw mud on their creation. Joel can't be a hero because he's from the South. And that's just a lesson we have to keep in mind, that the Hollywood liberals will not let us forget. That no matter how good we may be, those from the South can never be anything other than bad, because we are indeed not cast in their image. So until and unless we surrender to them, no matter what good we do, we will always be seen as tainted. Almost all video games are either designed in the North, in Europe, or in Japan. And the thing that all those games have in common is that they don't respect the American South or the people who live there. All of them portray Southerners in a completely negative way. What we need to do from now on is to make our own video games here in the South, so that way Southern children can have positive role models, and they can learn to take pride in their heritage and learn good morality. They won't see their ancestors and their famous generals from the past called buttfuckers, for instance. They will instead see strong, upright characters who have Christian values and who fight for what's right. So let's make this a reality. Let's found a Southern game studio, and let's do it sooner rather than later. I'm Remarkable Republican, bringing you the truth with truth-flavored bias, signing out.